It's time to down tools for a bit. Welcome to the ToolShed, the influential podcast for anyone and everyone involved in the building industry. Here's your host, Mick Hawes.
Hey folks, welcome to this episode of the ToolShed. I'm super pumped for this particular episode because I'm speaking to Zara D'Cotta about healthy homes. And why I'm so pumped about it is I think it's just such a critical topic to really unpack and understand, because all of us endeavour to do all sorts of things to improve our health and our energy. And in fact, I was just watching a documentary about the gut biome and how important it is, and how it's 70% of our immune system is in our gut, and it's like a second brain, and we learn all about that sort of thing. But we never think about the environment that we live in, the home that we live in. And there's all sorts of things that can happen in our home that can really impact our health, our energy, our emotions, our ability to make good decisions. And so it's a super important topic to unpack. And I think we've got the right person to unpack this topic on the ToolShed. Zara, thank you very much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this, because it came from some challenges with your own health.
Thank you, Mick. It is an honour to be here. I really admire the work that you're doing in the building industry. So very grateful to have the opportunity to have this chat with you. So my work focuses on healthy home design and building materials. I'm a building biology new build consultant, and this is a path that I've been on both a personal and professional level that started 11 years ago with my breast cancer diagnosis, which completely changed the course of my life at age 29, the departure from my corporate career, switching to an organic lifestyle, learning to meditate, and really thought that I'd learned all that I needed to as a result of that experience, until 2 years to the day later when I was diagnosed with a melanoma on the back of my leg. Now, I was really lucky in that neither of those cancers had spread, but after going through all of this, and very shortly after that losing a very dear lifelong friend to cancer, I had 20 plus symptoms that no doctor was able to diagnose or give me any logical explanation for, other than stress. And I was very fortunate to find an environmentally aware health practitioner that helped me establish that I'm one of the 1 in 4 people that's genetically susceptible to mold, and told me that anytime I wanted to move homes for the rest of my life, I would need to get a building biologist to assess it to determine if it would be safe for me to live in, which I thought was a bit far-fetched at the time. It was 2015. Mold certainly wasn't recognised as a health hazard in the National Construction Code. My doctors and family and friends thought that I had lost the plot. So I decided maybe it was stress. I decided to leave the home that I owned in Melbourne, moved to Sydney by the ocean, hoping for healing by the ocean, but instead spent 4 years on the move from one water damaged building to the next, trying to find a home that would enable me to heal. I moved more times than I could count, before eventually moving to northern New South Wales into a home that had builders had handed over the keys 3 weeks before I moved it in. And symptoms that I experienced in this house were the tipping point that led me, from the building materials, that led me to deciding to study building biology, focusing on new builds, first here in Australia and then in the USA, where I've had the opportunity to be mentored by people who are really pioneers in this space.
So the thing that stood out straight away was like 1 in 4. So there's a 25% chance that anybody listening to this can be affected just by mold, and that's just one thing.
Yep.
We're going to unpack a whole bunch of other things.
Yep.
But I'd be interested in your opinion about what a healthy home means, or a green home is the term that's often used, and there's other terms that are sort of similar. My opinion on it, having spoken to lots of people about this, is the majority of people tend to think the purpose of a green home is I'll have a reduced or a no power bill, and it's all about energy and saving money and so on and so forth. And I don't know that too many people really think about the quality of the air and moisture and I want to talk about
No.
electromagnetic fields at some stage. All of
Yes.
these things that people just don't consider have such a profound effect. And like
Yep.
you know, you talk to your mates and even the doctors and all of that sort of stuff, and they go, it's all in your mind, it's stress, you just need to calm down. What about all of this other stuff that's impacting me? How
Yep.
what's your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, there's a big difference between a home that's green and a home that is healthy. And I think something that's really important to point out is that the CSIRO did a study in 2018, and they found the highest levels of volatile organic compounds, so harmful synthetic ingredients from paints and carpets and building materials, in a green building. So just because a building is green doesn't mean that it's good for your health. And when we're looking at what a healthy home is, we want what are our most basic human needs? We need clean air to breathe. We need clean water to drink. We need light that supports our circadian rhythm. We want to minimize our exposure to man-made electromagnetic fields. And in today's world, we're typically overexposed to those and underexposed to the Earth's natural electromagnetic radiation. So they're the key things that need to be taken into consideration when trying to determine if a home really is healthy.
Yeah. And it's, again, it's just one of those things that we don't think about. And, you mentioned the whole EMF, the electromagnetic fields, and we're just overwhelmed by it. And I first came across it, I don't know, maybe 25 years ago or longer.
Wow.
Must have been in the late 90s. I went to Mastery University with Tony Robbins, and they were selling the pendant. Can't remember the name of it, but I've got one. But whether that's a placebo or not, but we started to become aware of electromagnetic fields. I had a naturopath that I would go to every week for 18 years, and he had an EMF, like a cylinder thing that was plugged into the power that protected you in that space from EMFs. And then you start to learn about, holding the phone up to your head or leaving it in your pocket, or as a lot of the ladies do, put it down in their bra and all sorts of things. And then
Yes.
Bluetooth, tell us what you know, and I know you know a lot about it because you're certified in this space, about the danger of electromagnetic fields and exposure.
Yeah, so it might be worth starting with how I first became to realise that they were harming my health. So it was in this home in Melbourne where I was experiencing a range of symptoms, and one of the symptoms I was getting was heart palpitations, but only in one room of my house. Whenever I sat on my couch in my living room, I would get heart palpitations. Like, why here and nowhere else? So when the building biologist came to my house, he found moderate levels of airborne mold, but really felt that electromagnetic fields were the bigger issue for me, both from my phone and my laptop, but also my neighbour's Wi-Fi router was on the other side of the wall of the living room, and he had his meter, and it was beeping off the charts. And he's like, "This is the sound that your body is competing with, and the levels were well above what is considered safe limits in building biology." So yeah, that was 9 years ago, and I've done many hundreds of hours of research since then. I went to the USA at the end of last year and did a week of intensive training with 3 electrical engineers who are world leading experts in electromagnetic radiation. And there's decades worth of peer-reviewed scientific studies about the many different ways they can be harmful to the human body. And it can sound alarming at first, but I actually find it really empowering, because when by making some simple changes, like not sleeping with your phone charging next to your head at night and having your Bluetooth on, you can actually make a huge difference to how you feel day to day, and also reduce your risk of illnesses in the long term, like cancer.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, it's crazy stuff, and the amount of people that do have their phone by their bed, whether it's charging or not, just in case I'm needed. Like, I don't know what they think's going to happen. How did we survive with a normal phone on the wall? Like, I don't know how we did it. And you had to get out of bed and go and answer it. It's crazy.
And how did we survive without wireless internet? Like, life was okay before we had wireless internet in our homes. I've got my laptop I'm on right now. It's hardwired, and it makes a massive difference to how I feel at the end of the working day compared to when I used to have my laptop connected to Wi-Fi.
Yeah. And that's crazy. Like, I always plug my computers in with a LAN cable. I mean, apart from anything, it's faster, folks, than Wi-Fi. So you get a better internet connection, but it's also safer. And there's all sorts of things that you can do to protect you from that, and just little things like Bluetooth. People walking around with Bluetooth headphones and that sort of stuff. So many hours in the day. I really hope that people start to listen to these messages and it changes their behaviour, because there's a lot of stuff that we can prevent that we just tend not to. Going back to the whole condensation, mould, and how that affects the health of you, are there anything that we can do to improve the house that we're in at the moment? I mean, it's all well and good to go, okay, well, we need to knock the house down and build a new one. Not many people can afford to do that. What are some of the things that we can look for and check out and maybe do to prevent our exposure to all of the moulds and condensation and stuff?
Great question. So a really big one is monitoring and managing indoor humidity levels. So mold thrives in environments above 60%. So having a thermohygrometer so you can monitor what the humidity levels are, and also investing in some dehumidifiers so that when it does go above 60%, you can reduce the amount of moisture in the air. I think that's one simple thing that can make a really big difference. And then making sure that you've always got the fan on, or there's ventilation or windows open when you're in the shower or when you're using the laundry or cooking in the kitchen. So minimizing that buildup of moisture in wet areas. And then things like regular cleaning, minimizing household dust and clutter, because dust is a food source for mold. So they're three quite simple things that people can do to reduce mold in their current home.
Where does dust come from? Like, we're just selling this house at the moment. We had an open home on Saturday, and it was absolutely clean, spotless. And then today the sun shines in through the window and there's a layer of dust. Like, it just magically appears, like someone's sprinkling it out of a bag somewhere. It's incredible.
It absolutely blows my mind. I've got an air purifier with quite a big HEPA filter, medical grade HEPA filter, and a pre-filter wrapped around it that I need to change every 6 months or so. And when I go to take that off, like I'm in a modern house near the ocean, lots of, well ventilated, very clean. And when I take that off, it's just covered in a very thick layer of dust. And I have the same thought, where does all that dust come from?
Yeah, it's crazy. So something we can do is air purifiers and dehumidifiers. The crazy thing is that, I do a lot of sailing. And a lot of the race boats put a dehumidifier in their boats when they're in their berth in between races, because there's been wet sails and what have you. So, and it keeps the boat really, really dry. And they'll spend all of that money and put a dehumidifier in their race boat, but not in their house where they spend 99%
Oh my
of their
goodness.
time. It's bizarre. So they're a good thing.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. Dehumidifiers, absolutely. Yep.
And what about the air purifier? Because the one that I've got on my boat, but I do spend a lot of time on the boat. It's an air purifier and a dehumidifier, and they've got different functions, I believe.
Yeah, investing in the right air purifier is really important, making sure there's a few different features it needs to have: an activated carbon filter, a medical grade HEPA filter, a pre-filter. And also the size of the filter really matters in terms of how much air it can filter. So yeah, without knowing the exact type that you've got on your boat, I can't comment, but I know that there are, some brands out there that probably don't do as much, as good a job as they claim to. As I learned when I first went to buy one in a white goods store. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Hey, I'm Mick Hawes from Builders Business Black Belt, and I hope you're enjoying this episode of the ToolShed podcast. I've got something super exciting I want to share with you. We've got a place that's got a whole bunch more free resources to help you with your building business. In fact, there's a whole other podcast that gives you specific training that will help you get more free time, more profit, and more enjoyment from your building business. And it's called, funnily enough, the ToolShed. It's free to join, and it's full of other success-focused builders. And I invite you to join us in the ToolShed, where you can ask me questions and get guidance and support from other successful builders. Just click the link in the description to join, and I'll see you in there. I hope you enjoy the rest of this podcast. So do your research and make sure you get the good quality ones that deliver what they say they're going to say, deliver. And now something else that we haven't really touched on is just potential toxicity. Say that 10 times really fast. Potential toxicity.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it anymore. In building materials, in timbers, in carpets, in whatever. What do we need to know about that?
Yeah, so toxicity is one of a number of, there's 9 criteria that I consider when assessing building materials. So is it going to off-gas toxic chemicals like VOCs, formaldehyde? Then there's, if it's a natural material, just because it's natural also doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. So for instance, granite is a stone that can emit high levels of radon gas, which is the second leading cause of lung cancer globally. Then you also want to consider, will it impact the electroclimate of the home? So for instance, metal is a conductor of electricity, so that needs to be factored in. And then it's also important to consider how the material is going to perform in response to moisture. So looking at how, is it vapor permeable? Is it hygroscopic? So a material that's hygroscopic will absorb and release moisture from the air, so will actually help regulate humidity. So they're probably they are the key things to consider from an indoor air quality point of view when selecting building materials.
Yeah, it's an absolute minefield of understanding all of these sorts of things. So, I mean, that leads me into the next question, which is Healthy Home. Your website is thehealthyhome.com.au. We'll make sure we put the links in the description. What services, what experiences, what value can somebody expect when they reach out to you? How do you help somebody with their home? Is it something that you help them with an existing home, or is it more in the building of new premises? How does it work?
So right now my work is firmly focused on educating building industry professionals. So I was supporting residential clients in home builds and renovations, but the demand for my services very quickly grew in the building industry professional space. So I have a Healthy Building Materials Mastermind, which is a 10-week online program that home designers and builders can take part in and learn about the health and environmental impacts of different building materials, and also learn about strategies they can implement in design and construction stage to reduce mold risks and liability to their businesses.
The thing that popped into my mind straight away then is, I know that there'd be so many builders that would be fascinated by this, interested in this, but can we allay any fears about the impact that it might have in the pricing of a project? For instance, does it cost more to do this? Are there cost savings in this? Does the builder need to learn how to represent the value to the client to go to any extra expense, if there is any, to build a healthy home versus your standard garden variety home?
I think with any home, there is an opportunity to make it healthier than the standard build. There are things that can be done in the design and construction stages that will not cost any extra, that will make a profound difference to the health of the occupants. If you want healthy materials, yes, they typically do cost more, but it's also not necessarily about spending more, but being smarter with how you invest your money. So instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on tiles imported from Europe, investing your money into the building fabric. So I know builders struggle to convince clients of the value of spending more money on insulation and a weather-resistant barrier, because they're not going to see those materials once the walls are sealed. But those materials will make such a difference to how that home's going to perform, how they're going to feel when they're in their home, their heating and cooling costs, their condensation and mold risk, and also the resale value of the home.
Yeah, well, that's an important thing to unpack. Is again if you're going to invest into a healthy home. Are you finding that there is a greater awareness of that? And when people are selling their healthy home, they probably wouldn't. But, if they're selling their healthy home, is it something that can be an added bonus, an added benefit when you're selling to make it easier to sell or to even recoup the money that you've invested? Because, you've got house A and house B and they look the same from the street, but one won't kill you
Yep.
and the other one will.
I've seen some examples of homes on real estate websites where they're now talking about the features and the natural and the healthier materials that are being used. And I definitely think this is something that I think will, based on the growth of interest in healthy homes, I think we will see more of this over time. And I know that I've just been found out this morning, I've got 90 days to vacate the rental that I'm living in. And the thought of trying to find somewhere that I know is going to support my health, that's built to the standards I would like it to be built to, is very challenging. I wish there were really, I'd pay more for a home that I knew was built to the standards that homes should be built to.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. So somebody listening to this goes, this is something that I need to know more about. What is the journey to you? How does that work as far as how do they reach out to you? When they do reach out to you, where can they go? What can they expect to experience?
Yeah, sure. So they can find us at thehealthyhome.com.au. They can also reach out to us via hello@thehealthyhome.com.au. I'm also on Instagram under my name and The Healthy Home. And we have in my Instagram profile, there's a link to it's called the What's Your Healthy Building Materials IQ scorecard. So for builders that might be listening, if you want to dive deeper into the world of building materials and gauge where your knowledge is at and get a personalized report indicating areas of strength and areas for improvement and further resources, you'll get a personalized report. And then, the Healthy Building Materials Mastermind, if you're wanting to explore further, is as I mentioned, the 10-week program, which is it's not just, I guess, about the content and the education on the health and environmental impacts of building materials, but it's really a incredible community of builders that are committed to pioneering this incredible movement for change and improving the way homes are designed and built in Australia.
How do you roll out the Healthy Building Materials Mastermind? Is it an online thing? Is it a face-to-face thing? How does the community work? Because, I'm an absolute passionate believer in the value of building community of like-minded people so they support and help each other. How does this one get rolled out?
This is online, but we have had some in-person events here in the Northern Rivers. I was just down in Tasmania recently, which has become a big growth area for healthy home builders. So it is online, but I also have experienced and hosted. I believe there's immense value in also getting together in person as well.
Yeah, apart from being a whole lot of fun, I think it's one of the best ways to learn and bring everybody together and they just start sharing and supporting each other. And it's important to be in a community where you understand the experience and share the values of other people in that community. And I think like a peloton, we can get further and faster with a lot less energy if we hang together, and share values and beliefs. So that's really, really exciting.
It's so true.
It's been super enjoyable talking about this. I'm inspired about the whole thing. And I just wanted to thank you so much for putting the time aside to be on the podcast. It's been very educational and inspirational.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Mick.
So that's it for this episode of the ToolShed. I think this is such an important topic to talk about. I know that a number of past episodes have been on mental health, which is a super, super important topic to unpack. But the physical health thing is equally important. And, I read it on a toilet wall somewhere. We don't know what we don't know. And so we need to start to educate ourselves on these things, and we need to be talking to experts and passionate experts like Zara about these things so we can get the good quality information as effortlessly and quickly as possible to start to implement it into the building business. So please reach out to thehealthyhome.com.au. We're going to put a link in the description so you can just click the link and go to the website. Make contact and have that discussion and find out how you can use their content and the mastermind and so on and so forth to put into your building business, because we need to do something about this. There is a whole lot of unnecessary illness and all sorts of negative effects from the environments that we live in, and we need to stop building the homes that cause these problems. And it doesn't seem like it's a huge impost to be able to create a home that is healthy and is going to sustain health and give the families that live in those homes a far better experience for longer. So reach out, have the conversation. I hope this episode of the ToolShed got you thinking, got you inspired to take some action and do some things differently in your building business. So that is all for this episode. I'm Mick Hawes from Builders Business Black Belt. That's it. I'm out. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the ToolShed. If this podcast struck a chord with you, make sure you spread the word by sharing it with your mates in the building industry. We love your help to make the building industry better for everyone involved.